Hey guys, we're here for another week of Main Stage Wrestling right here on WERW Real College Radio. As I said, I'm Jacy, obviously the more important of the two, and you are?
The less important, Sam Gelfand.
I think that's, like, even when I don't say I'm the more important, I still think that nickname should precede your name, you know? Don't you think so?
I would hope not.
Oh,
that
no?
kind of, limits my ceiling as an announcer and or performer.
Is that so?
Well, you can't be the top guy with a nickname, the less important.
Well, theoretically, if you want to announce in the world of wrestling, or really any sport, you want to be sort of subordinate to the actual action itself.
And you're completely correct, but at the same time, that's also saying if you're in a broadcast booth, or even if you want to make it to the top of the industry in broadcasting, you can't say, "Hi, I'm the less important Sam Gelfand."
Well, you know, that's fair. But, you know what? Who knows?
That's just saying, don't listen to me.
Well, too bad. You should listen to Main Stage Wrestling every week. And you know what, Sam? We only have 2 more episodes after this week, after this episode right here, before we go on the summer break and take a couple months off before we return right here on WERW Real College Radio in a brand new studio. So, we have that to look forward to. And before we get all into the news, into the normal ongoings of Main Stage Wrestling, if you're listening right now, be sure to be following along at MainStageSU on Instagram and Twitter to stay up to date on everything Main Stage and Main Stage Wrestling, because you don't know when we're going to be coming back next semester, you know? You got to be following along on there so you can, again, just stay up to date on everything JC and the less important Sam Gelfand. Isn't that right?
Or, you can just look up the Syracuse University academic calendar and just hope for the best.
Yeah, but then WRW doesn't, come back immediately, you know? So, they give you a good month of buffer time before they put us back on the air. I'm not too certain why, but that's how it works. And I have to say, it's probably, for the best that we have the the summer months off out of any other time of the year, because that's sort of when wrestling reaches its, I don't want to say it's rut, but they spin their wheels for a while before they kick it into gear for SummerSlam, you know?
Yeah, because if WrestleMania is your season finale, then you have to start the new season, and you've got to get all your new storylines going, and you got to get people invested in anticipation of SummerSlam.
And it's not even like you have a good build-up to the season premiere. With The Walking Dead, right? Not so much anymore because the show has sort of fallen off in recent years, but the break from the finale to the premiere is always there's so much anticipation and hype behind it, and then the premiere is so exciting. In wrestling, the season premiere is less than 24 hours after the finale, so it makes it a bit rough to make that transition. So if there's any time for Main Stage Wrestling not to be on the air, the summer's probably the best time for that to be, although I'm sure it's wrestling, there's always stuff to talk about, but we're going to be giving you all the content in the world during the most eventful times of the year. And despite my trash talking the post-WrestleMania season, we just had some of the most eventful, and I don't want to say controversial, but eventful shows of the year in the past week, with
This
Raw
is
and SmackDown.
True. We had the Superstar Shakeup.
That is absolutely right, and that is
because apparently
listed.
they're not allowed to use the word draft anymore.
Well, they're not really drafting. No.
Well, it's more like a series of trades.
That's right, because I don't think they're not allowed to use the word draft, because they used the word draft originally when they split up into the 2 brands, because you had Shane McMahon on the one side and Stephanie on the other actually choosing talent. But now it's more like they treat it like it's a random number generator that does the talent exchanges, and it's very weird. Which also...
Maybe they should just call it the trade deadline then.
I guess so. It's so much more confusing than Shakeup.
Well, it's like, I don't know how many other sports you follow.
No, I'm an ignorant person. I don't know what Passover is. You think I'm paying attention to any other sport?
When it comes to things like baseball, football, basketball, etc., right when you hit the trade deadline, after the trade deadline, you can't trade players for the rest of the season, so the few days leading up to it are filled with tons and tons of high-profile trades between teams.
I gotcha. See, and I guess that would make sense if there were people leading each team. But we established back a few months ago that we don't have general managers anymore. It's just a collective McMahon family and the WWE universe running both shows. So it's like, what? How is there going to be a shakeup if there's no one advocating for either brand over the other? That's very confusing, but it's wrestling, so we put up with it, and we love it. We love them for it. I do, at least. I hope you do.
I mean, it's all right.
It is all right. And so, with this being our first news story of the week, I figure it's probably pretty important for us to run through all the shakeups, don't you think? Just real quickly.
All the moving and the shaking.
Okay, so Monday Night Raw has received from SmackDown Live the following names. Okay, this is going in order of importance according to some wrestling rumor website. So obviously it's very informed and well thought out.
Most credible source.
That's right. So first off, we have AJ Styles, the face that runs the place, the man that built SmackDown Live, I believe. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, SmackDown is the house that AJ Styles built.
That's what I've heard a couple of times. And then right behind him,
there's a sign outside.
Oh, is there? Huh. They bring
Each
that
arena,
along with them
they
every
have
week.
like one of those like little lawn signs. You know how it has like ADT or whatever, like your alarm company. They just stick one right outside the arena, and it just says "House that AJ Styles built."
That's a smart decision if that's him. Yeah. So next up, we have The Miz going over to Monday Night Raw, who has been he's been shaken up every single year since the brand split has started, which is insane because the poor guy can't get himself established on either brand before being just swept up and taken away.
Which is weird because I associate him as a SmackDown guy. After starting with his rivalry with Dolph Ziggler back in 2016, and then all he's been doing is Shane McMahon, it just seems like he's so much more comfortable on SmackDown.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so frustrating because I want him to be on SmackDown because SmackDown's the one brand where he has a chance of becoming world champion. And he was so close back in that, he was so close during that first year of the brand split to becoming champ, but just, nope, he had to come over to Raw to fight Dean Ambrose for a year, which was great. Just the best story ever.
You know what? It might be a better fit for him right now to be on Raw. Just because, as we all know, he's a great promo, and all the rumors, supposedly, about Fox and their acquisition of SmackDown Live is that they want more emphasis on in-ring talent, and they want more of a quote-unquote, legit fight type of feel.
That's good that they bring over Elias then, yeah.
More of a Ring of Honor type thing, I would assume.
I gotcha.
Well, old school Ring of Honor, like 2005 Ring of Honor.
I see.
So maybe, if Miz is on Raw, then it would give him more of a chance to be able to show off his promo skills.
I think I might just be incredibly biased, but I love The Miz in the ring and outside, so who knows.
I mean, I think he's solid. It's just that, as a heel, he doesn't really do anything flashy other than a beautiful DDT.
His awesome clothesline is flashy. I've never seen anyone else do that,
What, you haven't enjoyed Dean Ambrose on the wacky line?
No, that's so much better than the awesome line, actually. I'd revoke anything I've said. Oh my gosh, that feud, how is it not based on the better clothesline? That makes no sense. Okay.
That's like an old school territories type of feud. I love it.
I feel like it's happened in recent years, hasn't it? When someone... I don't know.
I know that DDP has said multiple times that if he ever came back, he wants to fight Randy Orton because he wants a battle between the RKO and the Diamond Cutter.
I can't tell you how little interest I have in seeing that match. So
I'd kind of be interested to see how well DDP can still go because, DDP yoga and all.
Yeah, I guess, but against Randy? Oh, okay. Okay, so after The Miz, we have the Usos, the men who just lost the SmackDown Live Tag Team Championships the week prior to the Superstar Shakeup, so massive shocker that they got switched over, And then, right after the Usos, we have Ricochet and Aleister Black cementing their spot on the Raw roster, which I don't know how I feel about, because this means that they're going to be a tag team for a little bit longer at least.
I'm okay with them being a tag team. I'm just afraid that, once again, being on Raw, they're going to have to do a lot more promos.
That's fair, yeah, but that's probably better for Ricochet at the moment because he's on the main roster. He's in WWE. You got to get used to it after a certain point, you know?
That's true. I mean, Aleister Black is a good promo, but I think it just fits his character better when he doesn't talk very much. But Ricochet, I mean, we all can admit that Ricochet's weakness is being placed on the mic.
More than Aleister Black being harmed by doing too many promos, I think what hurts his character a bit more is when he's on Twitter posting photos with a famous furry. I don't know. That
was Kofi Kingston.
No, he was also there.
Aleister Black?
Yep, Aleister Black, Zelina Vega, Xavier Woods, and Kofi were all there hanging out with the furries. So that's...
I had to look into it a little bit. Apparently, the dude is a top-tier Super Smash Brothers player.
I see. And the dude you're talking about is I guess, like you said, Super Smash Bros. Player who wears a furry mask and was hanging out with Kofi Kingston over the weekend. So,
yeah, I mean, we all know that, especially Up, Down, Down are into the competitive fighting game scene. And it's pretty interesting. I've watched Evo a couple of times, but Yeah, it's... Even though he might be one of the best in the world, I would hesitate to take a picture with him, to be honest. I just don't want that on my timeline. That's going to come back to haunt me at some point.
Even if he's the best in the world, I don't care if you're the best Smash player in the world. Why does that matter? Okay, never mind.
I'm going to run for office one day, and someone's going to pull that picture up off of my Twitter.
That's true, and we can't have you running for office. That's right. It's very incriminating. So, next up, and I know you're going to want to make a comment about this, but I'm going to ask you to refrain because it's our second news story. The next team drafted to Monday Night Raw is the War Raiders. So, we'll move on from that for now. Then,
you should see my jaw clenching right now.
Next up, we have Sami Zayn, who they never officially said is officially a Raw superstar, but if he shows up on Raw during the Superstar Shakeup and not on SmackDown, it's a pretty safe assumption to make. And he was great, he was amazing, and Sami Zayn is amazing, you know?
I love Sami Zayn, as his Twitter handle is, yes.
Is that what his Twitter handle is?
At the very least, he changed. He might have changed it like a year ago. I don't remember, but I do know that at least when he first came to WWE, it was "I love Sami Zayn."
That's good of him. So next up, we have the duo of Andrade Cien Almas and Zelina.
That's Andrade.
Well, you know, it's a force of habit. Andrade and Zelina, they come over as a duo, a package to Monday Night Raw.
Speaking of, when are the Unforgotten Sons going to get called up?
It's a great question. I ask myself that every day, man. I sit on the edge of my seat every single Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live each Monday and Tuesday, just waiting for them to come out. This has been.
Where are the Eelies?
That's also a great question. You know, you figure it's all a big work, and they fire them from NXT, but we all know it's just so it's even bigger of a surprise when they show up on the main roster. So
exactly, they're gonna come in the Royal Rumble at number 29 and number 30 next year.
Wow,
tear it up.
That would be the worst thing in the world. Not just the Eelies, just for a tag team to be 29 and 30, because it ruins the surprise completely. It's like with Carmella and R-Truth this past year. Why'd you give away the final entrant? It makes no sense. Okay, great. Just do 29. Make the Mixed Match Challenge the 29th entrant. It makes so much more sense. You're destroying your biggest surprise of the night.
Well, it's destroying the biggest surprise, but coming in at number 29 isn't as big of a prize as coming in at number 30.
You won the Mixed Match Challenge. I don't know if you deserve that big of a prize, you know? It's... okay.
You're insulting the integrity of the Mixed Match Challenge?
I am. I enjoyed the first season a lot, but then the second one ended up being like a round robin, and it was boring, okay?
Yeah, it was a little weird.
Yeah. So, next up on Monday Night Raw, we got Rey Mysterio coming over. Then, we got the First Lady of WWE, Lacey Evans, officially announcing she'll be sticking around on Monday Night Raw. Then we got the surprise, I guess, big name for the women's division, in that of Naomi. Then we got Cedric Alexander coming over from 205 Live, which is a big announcement because...
oh yeah, real happy for him. He's so good.
Yeah. And then we got EC3, I guess staying on Raw, which I don't know how great that is for him. Like you said with the promo thing, it's good. Fortunately, not doing all that much speaking. Yeah, I've not seen him with a microphone in his hand quite yet. So, the next up, we have Eric Young coming over as a singles competitor.
They're breaking up Sanity, apparently. Alexander Wolf. It's not quite been... oh, is that a later news story? Okay.
Well, not a news story. It's another bullet point. Right now, let's just get through the names. Then we can discuss to our heart's content. So, those are all the names for Monday Night Raw.
Although, if I may say, I think that one of the reasons maybe why EC3 hasn't been given as much mic time is because his mic skills are phenomenal, but they're for the most part based around playing to a live crowd, which is great, and that's an incredible skill to have, but when you're on Monday Night Raw, when you're broadcasting to an audience in people's homes of TV and whatnot, it's harder to get the same kind of reaction when you're trying to play to a crowd. So perhaps they just want him to work on being able to talk to anyone in particular.
Maybe so. Maybe. But, and also, you said that his mic skills are phenomenal, so maybe the problem is that WWE doesn't want none. You know?
That's true.
Very fair possibility, I think. So, SmackDown Live, as far as their shaken up superstars that they've received, in order of importance, once again, according to some wrestling news website, we got Roman Reigns, the Big Dog, coming over to SmackDown Live. Pretty big news, I feel. Then we got Elias, the greatest performer, the most charismatic performer, the toughest performer in WWE history, as according to Vince McMahon himself. So I think that's a pretty credible name.
That's the biggest acquisition in SmackDown Live history, according
I certainly
to Mr.
think
McMahon.
so. Then we got the Intercontinental Champion in that of Finn Balor coming over.
Oh, we forgot to mention that supposedly Samoa Joe is going to Raw, but was not on the show because he was ill.
That's what I had seen as well.
Which makes sense because if the Intercontinental Championship is now on SmackDown, then the U.S. Championship moves to Raw.
Granted, they've done it before where they've had both champions on the same brand, and then a week later or at the next pay-per-view, they have the title go back to the other brand. Like, they did it with Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens a couple years ago, remember?
Right, yeah.
So I guess they could do that, have Finn lose to Lashley if they want. I don't want that to happen. I never want to see that match again for at least 5 more years, you know? So
I feel like Lio Rush and Bobby Lashley would fit in well on SmackDown, though. I feel like they could benefit from the shakeup.
Maybe just because they'll have less time on TV, sure, but I don't know.
I like Lashley.
I like Leo.
And I like Leo.
I like... The one time I've been like, oh my god, Bobby Lashley is great, is I mentioned it last week, and the segment shouldn't be getting brought up 2 weeks in a row, nearly a year after it happened, but it was the obstacle course with him and Sami Zayn, where Bobby Lashley just did the entire thing in like 40 seconds, and it was the damnedest thing I had ever seen, Sam.
Well,
incredible.
Yeah, he's an incredible athlete, won some awards when he was in the Army and whatnot, but do you not enjoy the favorite pose?
You know, I don't know how I forgot about that, and that's shameful for me as an avid wrestling fan, as an avid wrestling fan, that... You know what? That is the highlight of my week. I don't know how I could have forgotten this. You're absolutely right.
You get the favorite pose.
And I regret everything I've ever said. So, next up, we have Lars Sullivan coming over to SmackDown, which is certainly a decision. And then we got...
Of all the decisions that have been made, that is one of them.
Yes, indeed. And out of all the decisions that have been made, this next one, probably the worst... Ember Moon coming over to SmackDown Live, already positioned in a feud with Becky Lynch. Come on, guys, we're past this. Next, we got Bayley. Great, love Bayley, but this was weird. Next up, again, we're going to talk more about this in just a few minutes. Right now I'm getting the names out, and I'm being passive-aggressive towards Ember Moon. Not passive-aggressive, that was just aggressive. No? Maybe. So
Ember Moon's great.
Next up, we got Kairi Sane. Then we got Buddy Murphy coming over from 205 Live as well.
Who is also phenomenal.
Indeed, as is exemplified by this match on NXT this week with the Velveteen Dream. Oh my god.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to watch this week's NXT, but I am so looking forward to that
match. Done
match.
Yourself a disservice. Then, next up, we got Liv Morgan. Then we got Chad Gable. Then we got Apollo Crews. Then we got... Mickie James, who sent out a real weird tweet earlier this week. Then we got the team of Heavy Machinery, and that makes up the Superstar Shakeup for 2019. And I think it's pretty obvious, right? SmackDown sort of got the short end of the stick for the 3rd year in a row.
As is tradition, SmackDown builds people up. As soon as they have momentum, Raw takes them. Whoever is losing momentum on Raw goes to SmackDown. The cycle repeats. I think it's safe to say that SmackDown's main event scene has been robbed of quite a bit of its talent, if not almost all of it, but I think that the women's division has a potential to possibly be the best of any women's division that either brand has had since the brand split was reinstituted, and I also think that now that the Intercontinental Championship is on SmackDown, you're talking Finn Balor, you're talking Chad Gable, you're talking Apollo Crews. Oh
my god, Chad Gable's on SmackDown. I wrote his name down, but I didn't realize... Wait. Oh my... So he's a singles competitor again.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Yeah, there could be a great Intercontinental title scene on SmackDown Live.
Should I really be getting my
Buddy
hopes
Murphy
up?
Too.
That's true. Should I really be getting my hopes up for Chad Gable getting a singles push in WWE at this point?
I mean...
I love him, and I love his matches. He was the only one to get a quality match out of Kurt Angle in his retirement tour, man. That's an impressive thing, you know? So
And Luke Harper tried to single leg him during
the
Andre the Giant Battle Royal.
That's true. So, like you said, the first note I have under here is how sort of great the SmackDown women's division seems to be in, how great of shape they seem to be in at the moment, with Kairi coming over as a tag team with Asuka, I guess, which I hope is short term, because I think both of those women don't need to be relegated to a tag team. Am I wrong in thinking that?
No, you're completely correct, and I'm a little upset that they didn't just bring up both Sky Pirates, to be honest, because I think that Io Shirai and Kairi Sane were doing great stuff as a tag team.
But I feel like this is a problem with NXT every year, especially with the women's division, not so much with the men's, is that as soon as any woman starts to develop a character, they get dragged up to the main roster, because the main roster is, at least they were, at such a disparity, like at such a need of having newer women for how big they were planning to expand the divisions. And so I think it's good to keep Io there, because if you take her, how many other stars do you really have aside from Shayna and Bianca?
That is a fair point.
And then we just get back into the loop of NXT building up their women, and then as soon as they start to pick up any steam, they just take them away again, you know?
Well, that's also why I feel like there should be downwards movement, where people on the main roster should be able to go back to NXT as well. It keeps things fresh. It keeps things from getting overcrowded on the main roster, and you give people who have kind of lost their way, or someone like Bayley, who, as we all know, is great, but the fans just haven't gotten behind her in a while, just gives them a chance to refresh themselves and go on a redemption arc of sorts.
Yeah, I think the Bayley character especially would work well for, because her character is supposed to be like a perpetual underdog, which doesn't work when 3 months into her debut on the main roster, she wins the Raw Women's Championship. You know, those things don't line up as far as basic storytelling goes.
And if it wasn't for Zack Ryder now being part of the Raw Tag Team Champions, Zack Ryder's been a name that's been tossed around so many times as someone who would benefit from going back to NXT, possibly Dolph Ziggler.
But they've already done it with Zack Ryder, you know?
Did they already do it with him?
That's how the Hype Bros came into being.
Oh, okay.
You didn't know that?
You know that I didn't start watching until 2016.
I know. I think Zach was even there in 2016. I don't know.
The first time I saw the Hype Bros was when they came to SmackDown Live.
I gotcha. Yeah, no, for a while they had Zach going down and doing all the tapings for NXT so he could team up with Mojo Rawley, because he was sort of just doing nothing like a couple years after his big Z True Long Island story run, you know? And so that was their way of getting him back into the mix, but you paired him with Mojo Rawley, so I don't know what you expected.
Still the internet champion in all of our hearts.
In all of our hearts? No, in real life. He still has that title. Who are you kidding, man?
No one's taking it off of him, I guess.
I've not. On my action figure shelf at home in San Antonio, Texas, that belt is still firmly wrapped around that figure's waist. So excuse you. I keep all those titles up to date.
Well, maybe the Iron Sheik.
Is the internet champion?
Well, have you seen his Twitter? It's great.
I mean,
I can't repeat any of it because
that's true.
You know
not
why,
on here.
But
not on here. So, the women's division's a bit. What we were talking about? Okay, so the women's division on SmackDown. I think it's good that Kairi's up here. I know it's the Superstar Shakeup. What do you want? We're not gonna get to all the news stories this week. I hate to tell you. So
just reminding you.
Yeah. We got Kairi, we got Bayley, who's getting booed on the main roster for the first time. I'm surprised it took this long for her to get booed. So, I guess...
It started like a year or two ago, though, didn't it?
I mean, not nearly as bad as it was this past Tuesday, I don't think. Because you had, like, very not timid, but watered-down reactions. Like, people just didn't care about her. It was very apathetic. But not to the point of boos, I don't think. Were there?
There were some boos thrown around. Personally, even though Bayley is a great face character, I think she should try to mix it up. I would love to see Bayley, like, being a heel and that she's trying to do heelish things but doesn't really get it.
Well, she's just really pathetic and can't pull it off.
Like a Hot Topic heel.
I gotcha. I mean, oh my god. As much as I would be interested in seeing it...
Is this what bad guys do? I want to do what bad guys do. I feel like that could work for Bayley.
I would be interested in seeing it, but I know it would tarnish any chance she has going forward of having a serious career in WWE. Like, I couldn't see anyone taking her seriously at all unless she gets a total revamp. Okay.
How serious is wrestling really?
That's fair. So, next up, we have all these factions that got split up. We got the Riot Squad losing Liv Morgan. We got Sanity losing Eric Young to Raw. Killian Dane staying on SmackDown. And then, as you were starting to mention, Alexander Wolf going back down to NXT, which, hey, they're taking your advice, I guess.
Either he's going back to NXT or he tweeted that he said goodbye WWE. It's not really very clear what the situation is right now. It seems, I mean, his Twitter message could be interpreted many ways, but it sure definitely looks like he's leaving.
Mm-hmm.
But, they're saying he's WWE still has his contract. He's just going to NXT. So who knows? You know, we say it every week. How privy are we really to what's going on behind the scenes?
I'm not allowed to disclose my sources on here, Sam. That's all I will say. So, next up, or the next team that was split up, I guess, was the Glorious Ones, which, hey, that's a very happy thing. I enjoy that quite a lot because Chad Gable's great. Bobby Roode can also be great, but he hasn't been as of late. I mean, neither has Chad Gable, so who knows? I think.
But Bobby Roode is another guy who excels on the mic.
Yeah.
So, once again, maybe this could be good for him.
Is it not weird that right now on Monday Night Raw, where we theoretically have AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Eric Young, and EC3? Is that not just...
And Bobby Roode.
And Bobby Roode, yes. It makes no sense.
And if Drake Maverick's still floating around somewhere.
Oh, that's true. At Access, back during WrestleMania weekend, they saw AOP sitting at a table, like, just hanging out, waiting for fans to come up to him, so, hey.
I hope you came up to them.
No.
You didn't want to, like... I feel bad when I see wrestlers at signings and whatnot, and just no one's coming up. Like, I want to make them feel special.
Access. There's a line for everyone, you know. But I remember seeing them by their lonesome. Okay, but I'm sure they had a line. They're not going to be left out of the fun. Okay, and also at WrestleCon when I was walking through there, Virgil was just sitting at his table alone, just proving all the suspicions true, which is a shame. And then, okay, the next up, as we mentioned, we have the cruiserweights being brought up to the main roster.
Life.
It really does. LonelyVirgil.com, you know? So, Cedric Alexander, Buddy Murphy, both on Raw and SmackDown Live, respectively, which pretty exciting. I like that the 205 Live guys now have something to climb towards, or like scratch and claw for, aside from the Cruiserweight Championship, which has been held by such luminaries as TJP and Enzo Amore, so that's great.
The problem with the Cruiserweight division is that it is so great, but they just don't... There's no promotion of the Cruiserweight division going on. They're not giving you any reason to get invested in the Cruiserweight division. You can tune in and say, look, you're probably going to get a match that's at least 3.5 stars every single week, but there's, there's no real hard storylines for it. They're not saying you're going to want to check out 205 Live. You can't miss these matches.
You don't want to.
They're doing nothing to elevate the prestige of the Cruiserweight Championship or the division itself.
I tuned in for the 3 weeks after Aiden English joined the commentary team, and it was a boring show. I mean, there were good matches in the main event each week, but I didn't care about the matches. And the only thing I cared about was Maria fighting with Aiden English, and it was just really obnoxious. That's why I cared about it, because it was like, oh my god, guys, there's a match going on that's actually pretty good involving Mike Kanellis, okay? Which doesn't happen that often, believe it or not. So just pay attention to this. But no, they so I just, 205 Live, it's too much.
I love the Cruiserweights. I just wish that they gave them a better platform.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And I want another Cruiserweight Classic, damn it. Give me another Cruiserweight Classic.
That's very fair. So, also, a note that I wanted to make was that I think it's a good idea to have Finn Balor and Ricochet on separate brands, because they're not similar as far as their styles go, I wouldn't say.
But they're similar as far as abs.
That's exactly it, because their abs appeal to a certain demographic of like a general sort of wrestling audience, you know?
You mean everyone?
That's exactly right. Those are the two guys that appeal to everyone in every audience, you know? The kids like him because Finn Balor's a cool demon person, and Ricochet can do flippy doos, you know? And then the women love them because they're both incredibly handsome men, and then the men love them because it's like, oh, I love the Bullet Club, or oh, I love indie wrestling, very cool, you know? So
it's a women want him, men want to be him kind of situation.
That's exactly right, which doesn't happen that often, and you have two of them in WWE right now, which is pretty crazy, you know? Can you think of anyone like that? Like, in the past 20 years, aside from those two?
Stone Cold?
The women want to be with him? I don't know about that. I think they just thought he was cool. Which is that's probably the best situation. You just have someone everyone thinks is cool. Like Becky Lynch.
Otis Dozovic.
That's very fair. I want to be with him, to be quite honest. We
all do.
Yeah. So, the last note on the Superstar Shakeup, Roman Reigns and Elias, the final segment on SmackDown Live where Roman just beats up Vince McMahon and Elias for a few minutes. It was fun. I enjoyed watching it. But these are two draft picks. They're not draft picks. These are two shakeups that I was a bit confused by, because I mean, I was sort of expecting Roman, you know? But Roman's one of those guys that you can have on 3 times in the same show. You can have him in 3 different segments, and he's going to deliver each time. Like, he's a great guy to have on a 3-hour show to carry a story throughout the episode, I feel.
That's true.
And there aren't that many guys like that. Maybe that's just because they don't give the opportunity to all that many other people aside from Roman, but he's had so much experience with it where that's a spot he sort of thrives in, you know, because as much as people used to boo him when he had those opportunities and he had that spot on Raw and SmackDown, or sorry, on Raw, he would still succeed, and he would still, like, be very constructive and very, very essential to putting on an interesting, long-lasting story throughout, a 3-hour show.
Perhaps you have a 3-hour show in this massive roster, maybe you don't have to repeat things.
I don't think it's a matter of repeating things, but it's a matter of getting a story, because the idea behind having those stories that last throughout the show is that you're hooking your audience so that they stay around for the whole thing. So you have someone show up in the opener, you have a backstage segment midway through the show, and they show up at the end of the 2nd hour or the end of the 3rd hour, you know? So it's...
If you want to keep my attention on Raw, don't have literally 1/3 of your show dedicated to commercials. Simple as that.
That's very fair. That's why you wait about an hour and 15 minutes, and then you hit the play button, you know?
Ah, fair enough.
That's exactly right.
Well, that's why I just watch the stuff on YouTube.
That's a fair way to go
DVR.
about it. You could also go with Hulu. I don't have DVR either. I have to put a flash drive into my TV, and it lets me pause for up to an hour and a half. I don't understand it, but it works, okay? So... also Hulu is a great option as well because it cuts out the filler.
But they have ads.
Huh?
But they have ads.
They do? Oh, I guess it depends what Hulu you have, right? I don't use Hulu. I used Hulu. We're taking this first segment into extra time and overtime.
Stratosphere.
That's exactly right. Because I used Hulu. That's not a thing. I used Hulu for the first time in forever to watch wrestling this week because main event with 1/3 of the broadcast booth being the last professional broadcaster, Sam Roberts, commentating alongside Renee Young and Byron Saxton.
Which, by the way, I hope that's on one of your news stories you put out for this week. I don't know if I'm sure you heard what Sam Roberts had to say about Dana Brooke.
Oh, it was great. I loved it, yeah. Because, I mean, people are so easy to get... Okay.
It's a little low.
People are marks. That's what wrestling is all about. You know, people are supposed to believe the stories. I've listened to Sam for upwards of 1,500 hours of broadcasting. That's not an exaggeration, okay? And many of those hours have just been him talking about wrestling. He doesn't hold those opinions. It's what he's being... Like, they're telling him, hey, we want you to present this opinion for the show. You know, we're putting you in this role to be a sniveling little jerk, you know? We don't want you to be likable. That's why we're having you say all these big words and present controversial opinions.
But I think there's a difference between being like a heel-type commentator and just burying someone. As a commentator, your job is to build people up no matter what sport you're in or what your position is. Your job is to make people seem better than they actually are.
I think that would have been a really valid argument if Dana had lost. Because she won the match, and you had Byron and Renee defending her at all points. So I would say, if it were just Sam, crapping on her for the whole match, and then Byron and Renee are just sort of fine with it, and they don't say anything, and then Dana loses, that's an argument. And I know I'm a Sam Roberts shill. I'm gonna defend him till I'm dead. But she won the match, and Sam he looked like he had egg on his face after the match. You know, he looked dumb. It wasn't Dana that got buried. It was Sam, the one that looked dumb, the broadcaster.
I feel like there was a better way to go about it.
I think
it could have been phrased better in a less damaging way.
Mind you, this was his first time ever behind a broadcast booth for WWE, you know? He's done commentary before, but for indie companies 10 years ago.
And he's done pre-shows and stuff, but I guess it's the first time as a color commentator.
Yeah, so, I don't know. They're growing pains, I guess. He's going to be more eloquent about it, I feel, going forward. The one thing I was taken aback by were the words he was using. I don't know if you listened to it.
I did not.
But he was trying to throw out all these really big words that I know he doesn't actually know. He had to have looked them up 10 minutes before the show started, because he had never used them before in his life, so far as I'm aware, you know? So,
a little erudiation on a broadcast never hurt anybody.
That's exactly it. So, I was just thinking that exact thing. Last point of the Superstar Shakeup before we take a break. We're already almost 40 minutes in. So,
we're just going to have to speed through a couple of news stories and then get to our match of the week.
Yeah.
Which I know that everyone at home can't wait to hear about Bradshaw and Trish Stratus versus Chris Nowinski and Jackie Gayda.
Who could? How about this? How about we go through our news stories all at once, then we play 2 songs, and then we come back for our match of the week? How about that?
Good.
Okay,
sure.
great.
Let's just get through them.
So, Elias is, I feel, also a weird one to bring over to SmackDown Live because he's a great person to have break up the monotony of 3 hours of wrestling every week on Raw, you know? Like, Roman's a good one to have as a common thread. Elias is a good one to keep the audience from getting bored.
But clearly they're putting Elias into the WWE Championship realm.
Oh, of course. Is that so?
Well, that's why they brought him out in the main event. That's why Vince McMahon was like, this is the greatest thing. I think they're bringing him over to SmackDown because they want Elias WWE Champion and they don't want to have him take the title off of Seth Rollins.
As much as I would love that to be the case, you are smoking crack, Sam.
Who else is in the main event scene on SmackDown right now?
Know, maybe Roman Reigns, the man who just came back from beating cancer?
Well, yes, I mean, you've got Roman Reigns. I'm trying to think, though, what is your main event scene right now in SmackDown Live? You have Roman Reigns, you have Kofi Kingston, Elias, and who else?
The incel himself, Lars Sullivan.
Lars Sullivan, I suppose.
Then we also, Finn Balor, I feel, as soon as he loses that IC title, he's not staying in that scene. He's a star, you know? Him holding the secondary title makes sense on a brand like Raw. But on SmackDown, it's a much more shallow pool. I mean, granted, they only have like 3 less superstars overall, but still, he's gonna be in that title scene, I feel. If not, at least in that Randy Orton sort of picture, you know?
Yeah.
I think so. So, that's my last bit about the Superstar Shakeup. You have anything?
No, I think we should move on. We're pressed for time.
That's exactly right. The Viking Experience, Sam. The new name for the War Raiders. We now, instead of having Hanson and Rowe, we are supposed to be acquainted with Ivar and Eric. Much more intimidating, you know? I
also heard at one point that before they called them the Viking Experience, they were considering calling them the Berserkers, which confirms that I have said, I said as soon as I heard it, the only way this name would work is if they brought back the Berserker and had them as their manager.
I don't understand this. This doesn't make sense. They're two very big men, not big, but they're sturdy men. They're
stocky.
Exactly. They're sort of like AOP-ish, but they're amazing in matches, and it's hilarious. If this...
It's not like Warbeard Hansen and Raymond Rowe aren't already great names.
If this didn't happen 2 weeks after NXT TakeOver, I really wouldn't care. Until that match happened between them, Alistair and Ricochet, I didn't care about the War Raiders, okay? It was just like, okay, they're a team, I guess, in NXT that hold the titles, apparently, because I haven't seen them in a while, so how am I supposed to know? And I didn't care, but they had a great match, and I'm like, okay, I'm pretty excited about the War Raiders now. This is cool. Now it's the Viking Experience. That's not cool.
No, that's... Every time that they change someone's name, we all collectively say, can it get any worse than this? And then they find a way to make it worse than that. We thought Ali was bad, we thought Andrade was bad, and now the Viking Experience.
Well,
and I wasn't even a fan of the War Raiders to begin with. War Machine is a great name. War Raiders, what is that? Although it kind of grew on me as okay after a little while. But the Viking Experience...
Well, you don't know what you have until it's gone, you know? So, the War Raiders is a lovely thing at this point. I don't know what to say.
I feel like all of my crying and moaning about this has already been done over the past week, though.
Fair enough.
At this point, I'm just resigned to accept it.
Let's get on to rushing through some other news stories. Next up, we have Kevin Owens joining the New Day, at least temporarily, while Big E is injured. And
love it.
I loved it, too. And
I was reminded immediately of when Kevin Steen joined the Young Bucks.
Oh, I see. Oh, boy.
Maybe partially just because same-colored shirts.
Fair enough. But I couldn't tell, throughout the show if Kevin was just playing into it a lot because he's going to, turn on them, which he always does. He always gets, really cheesy and plays into the act, way over the top before he turns on whoever he's turning on.
Yeah, but he's a face now, so...
But that's exactly it. He would theoretically be turning on them, and he made me think, okay, when's he going to attack them? And it just never came, and I was pretty happy with it, actually.
Maybe when Big E comes back, but I want them to run with it. You know what? Give me face Kevin Owens. He's extremely likable.
Fair enough.
Who would have thought that heel Sami Zayn and face Kevin Owens are two of the best things on Raw and SmackDown, respectively?
Very fair. Also, on Twitter, I was seeing people upset, and, saying things like, oh my gosh, I can't believe after these 3 African-American men are experiencing all the success in WWE, they finally reached the World Championship, they add a white man to the group. And it's just like, that's not the point here, right? It's
no,
one of them got injured.
Yeah, Big E is out. He tore his or injured something in his leg.
It was just, it seemed like wrestling fans being wrestling fans, and I was just, come
always
on.
just finding a way to complain.
I think so, but that's what we've been doing this whole show.
You know what? I agree with Sami Zayn.
So
it's not enough positivity.
Next up, we have Luke Harper requesting his release, the man responsible for the song we played at the beginning of this show, because, of course, the theme song of Brody Lee is God's Gonna Cut You Down, and it's amazing, and if we ever get that at Wild Zero, oh my goodness, that'll be so happy.
Oh, me too. Every time I see a spinning side slam, I call it the truck stop.
Amazing.
For years now, ever since I saw it. So I am so happy to I really want to see one in person.
I'm happy about it, but at the same time, I'm not happy about people making public that they've requested their release before they've been granted their release. The Tidalander did the same thing a couple months ago, and it's just like, that's not how you should go about business, I don't think.
Well, it's a weird, you're in a weird limbo, but at the same time, I kind of understand it in the sense that right now, as we know, WWE is kind of trying to hoard talent, keep them from going elsewhere. And I think that if you don't have that public pressure put on the company, then they're less likely to grant you your release. Because remember, they don't have to grant you your release. You can still be locked into the contract and not allowed to go anywhere. Look at what happened with Neville. So by putting public pressure on the company, announcing that you have requested your release, you have a better chance of actually getting your release.
I would say that's fair, but it's not like there wasn't public pressure on the WWE to release Neville. There was so much more pressure on them than there was to release either Ty or Luke Harper. So I don't think that holds up.
Well, Neville also didn't come out publicly and say that he's requested his release. They just kind of...
You said that there was public pressure, which that was the issue.
Public pressure, but I'm saying that Neville himself did not go on social media or whatever and say, I've requested my release from the WWE.
I think that might have actually contributed to even more pressure by him not saying it, by being silent, because it's like, oh my gosh, WWE is censoring Neville. Oh my gosh, and that made him even more upset. Who knows? But it worked out for Neville.
I'm just trying to justify what the thought process probably is.
I guess so. I'm not a fan of it,
I imagine that requesting a release is a rather emotional process from a company like WWE, and that's probably, when you go through something like that, you don't want to hold it to yourself.
Fair enough. And so people were also comparing it online to, because people being happy, I guess, for Luke Harper being released, being a double standard, because those same people, some of them at least, were the ones upset about Sasha apparently wanting to quit the WWE after losing her tag titles, which I get the argument, but if both of them want to leave, that's fine. Let them both leave. If they don't,
they're human beings, just like you and I. If they're unhappy somewhere, let them go somewhere where they'll be happy. Their happiness is just as important, if not more important, than our entertainment.
That's exactly right. And I guess the criticism would be that Sasha was, according to rumors, lying down on the floor, like in protest of losing the titles and being not the greatest person about it, which I guess there's an argument there. But
I understand where Sasha was coming from.
Yeah.
I completely get it. Apparently they were blindsided by the fact they're losing the titles. They learned the day of WrestleMania.
Well, I mean, probably a bunch of people learned the day of WrestleMania what the results of their match was. That doesn't strike me as a new thing.
Yeah, but I'm saying that WWE had told them, and they had sworn that they were going to raise the prestige of the titles, and they were going to go around, and then a month after winning, they're told you're going to drop them.
I get why that's an upsetting thing, but those two women are not new to the world of pro wrestling. They know how it works. Things like that don't always come to fruition. Just because the boss tells you, oh, you're going to be the next big thing, you're not guaranteed to be the next big thing.
After one too many times, I can completely get just being frustrated.
Yeah, for sure. Then, next up, it's something we didn't get to last week, which we probably should have, but we were real busy. AEW's TV deal or potential rumored TV deal with Turner Broadcasting on TNT. And now
Billionaire Ted's back at it, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, he is. And now the rumors are that
the dream of WCW has never died.
Now the rumor is that apparently AEW is going to be paying for TV time instead of the other way around. And then Dave Meltzer came out and was like, no, that's not true at all. And then some people were... it was really confusing, but now people are fighting about whether or not AEW is paying to be on Turner Broadcasting. So it's a mess, and people just need to shut up and let what happens. You
got Billionaire Ted and Billionaire Tony. They're just working it out.
They are, and hopefully all the plans will come to fruition, and we'll see as soon as SmackDown Live stops broadcasting on Tuesday nights. AEW fills that position on TNT, and I will have something else to occupy me on those very lonely Tuesday nights. You know,
Tuesday Night Dynamite.
That's exactly right. So I think it's about time we get to some songs, and we come back with our match of the week, which we'll only have a few minutes for. So we will see you then. Let me play music this time, for real. Nope, I struggle, guys. Hey, we are back here with some more main stage wrestling on WERW Real College Radio. I am Jacy Cola, I almost forgot my name, and I am joined by...
Sam Gelfand.
Of course.
Who has not forgotten his name.
No, you have not. Clearly, you are now the most important out of the two of us.
I have moved up in the world.
That's right. If I am forgetting my name, it's a real problem. So, guys, you can follow along with everything Mainstage at MainstageSU on Instagram and Twitter, and you will want to do that because we only have 2 more shows before the end of this semester, and because of how incredible the content is that we put out, how incredible our broadcasts are, you do not want to miss when we come back. And the only way you'll be able to stay up to date on all of that, the only way you'll be able to stay in the know, is following along at MainstageSU on Instagram and Twitter.
But enough hot dogging and grandstanding. Match of the week, ladies and gentlemen, it is Bradshaw and Trish Stratus versus Chris Nowinski and Jackie Gayda on Monday Night Raw, July 8th, 2002 at the First Union Center, now the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. TV rating at the time was 3.7, which, if you're unfamiliar with how Nielsen rating works, means 3.7% of American homes were tuned in to Raw that night.
As they should have been for the classic that was this match.
Compared, by the way, to right now, if you need some perspective, right now WWE is doing about 0.84.
I mean,
so
you can't
they were
compare,
on the up and up.
You can't compare TV ratings in 2002 to 2019. You know, there are so many other ways to consume media.
I just thought I would inject some perspective is all.
I see. So, Jackie Gayda, of course, the runner-up in Season 1 of Tough Enough, the sort of reality show that WWE tried doing in the early 2000s to, I don't know, reach that MTV audience and get them to watch wrestling, even though that's not how it works.
Well, isn't that what they did with Shotgun Saturday Night?
I mean, I guess so, but...
At the very beginning, anyway, around 1997, they were filming it in shopping malls and stuff.
It was so... Shotgun Saturday Night was the weirdest thing... Okay, do we want to talk about Shotgun Saturday Night right now?
No, we can talk about Shotgun Saturday Night another night.
Great, because I could go on about it. They need to upload that to the network. That's all I'll say for now.
Oh, please.
So, This match, the team of Jackie Gayda and Chris Nowinski, they were both competitors from the Tough Enough reality show. Chris Nowinski was actually the runner-up in Season 1, and then Jackie Gayda was the co-winner in Season 2. And they didn't have all that much experience, you know?
No, when they walked to the ring, JR said, and by the way, I will say, Jackie Gayda actually just walked to the ring.
Yep.
There was no poise, there was no confidence, no movements. She just straight up walked. And also, on another side note, it was weird hearing Trish Stratus have generic women's theme number 2 rather than her usual theme song.
I was really hoping you would do the laugh for us, but no, we don't get that. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Wow.
JR said, and I quote, "Both are outstanding in-ring competitors. They're very young. They're going to make a lot of mistakes. They're green, as they say." And maybe with the exception of the first sentence, that was prophetic.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was indeed. JR is a very smart man, and he certainly knew what he was doing. So, Jackie Gayda only made her pro wrestling debut less than a month before this match, I guess. And
same with Chris Nowinski. Well, Chris Nowinski made his WWE debut less than a month before.
And Nowinski was at least competent in the ring, I'd say, throughout this match. Not the greatest, but
I would say
competent.
There's not really anything to note about the men's portion of this mixed tag match. I think it was pretty solid. I mean, it was nothing special, but they worked at a decent pace, and you know what? They both looked pretty all right. Both had it was a weird phase of Bradshaw where
oh my god, he looks so much like a pervert, man. He came out with really gross, like greasy long hair with a cowboy hat and a rope around his neck.
It's such this weird phase where he's got the APA's theme, but he's not in the APA, and he's back to Cowboy Bradshaw, which was pre-APA, but he's before he turned into JBL.
Didn't make sense. It didn't make sense at all.
You could pinpoint the time period that this took place in so easily.
Yes. And so, yes, as I said, he comes out looking like a pervert, all that stuff in tow, and it's just, there was one bit in the men's match that I was taken aback by, because it starts out the match with Chris Nowinski mocking Bradshaw, like getting down into like a football sort of stance and like goading him in, and then he runs outside when Bradshaw starts approaching him and tags out to Jacy Gayda, but he takes the roughest bump ever, like that you impose on yourself, because there have been more brutal bumps, as is witnessed by PCO just a couple weeks ago. But this was just him climbing to the outside of the ring, and it looked so painful. So that was the only, like, I guess, slip up with the men's portion, and I thought it was worth noting. But do you want to describe what happened when the women took the ring? Because at first it was fine. We got like a hip toss and
I was gonna say, I think her first move was like this running snap Northern Lights that Trish Stratus did. Someone's got to steal that. That was beautiful. That was without a doubt the best part of the match. Was that singular move.
Fair enough.
And so I have here. So let's break down the first botch. Notice how I say the first.
Well, the match only lasted 3.5 minutes, so. Yeah.
The first. So it looked to me like Trish Stratus at first was looking to push Jacy Gayda into the rope so she could go into an Irish whip and push her off to the other side. Mm-hmm. But Jacy is completely out of position. Yes. So instead, Trish Stratus then goes to springboard into what I thought was maybe going to be a head scissors of some sort, or maybe an enziguri off the ropes. But Jacy just stands there. Yeah, she just looks.
Trish just lifts herself up on the ropes with her arms, like she holds herself up for a few seconds. Then she just nothing's happening, so she decides to get down.
So she tries to go down, and it looks like she's reaching for an arm drag as she's falling down. But instead, Jacy Gayda grabs her leg.
She's still just standing there. It makes no sense. So there's like a weird drop toe hold after Trish moves back into position just in front of Gayda, who's still standing still.
Yeah, so Gayda grabs Trish's leg in an attempt to do something, and then Gayda just falls on Trish and then
begins
rolls
choking
to the left.
her. She, which, of course, that's what you do when a match begins falling apart. Just choke your opponent. And then there was a weird like chin lock in the ropes after that to transition out of it. And,
So then the men come back in and they fight very briefly, very quickly. Nowinski tags in Jacy Gayda. The crowd dies within a second or two. It was so noticeable. The crowd was just starting to pipe up, and then immediate silence. It was incredible. So then Trish comes in, and she puts on the most awkward cravat that I have ever seen. I think what she was trying to go for was a snapmare, but Jacy Gayda stood there.
Yes.
So she had to turn it into a proper cravat instead, and then she forced the snapmare bump by doing an over-the-shoulder judo type throw, kind of thing that we see Ronda Rousey doing these days. And after that, Jacy Gayda hits a terrible corner clothesline and arm like a wet noodle.
Let's just get to the finish, man. This is it's too much.
So the finish is Trish Stratus and Jacy Gayda are up on the top rope looking for a
Trish
superplex.
Up there, yep.
Trish pushes Gayda off.
Yes, she does.
Jacy Gayda is standing facing away from Trish, trying to grab her bearings.
She's sort of like fumbling around for a few seconds before she's actually in position for the finisher, the finish of the match.
As well.
So it looks awkward because Trish is just standing there watching.
So she recovers, is standing there, eyes off the opponent, as you're not supposed to do, and Trish goes for a top rope bulldog to a standing Jacy Gayda.
Pretty simple move, right?
Yeah, glancing blow to the top of Gayda's head.
Forces her head down, mind you.
Does not bump.
No.
For an extra second.
She lifts her head back up and then just collapses in a heap, as you do with a diving bulldog, I guess.
And the amazing thing is that then Trish goes for the cover. 1, 2, it looks like Jacy Gayda tries to kick out at 3, but Trish puts all of her weight on Jacy Gayda's shoulder to mercifully end the match. Yeah. That's the finish. That's the end of it. 3.5 minutes.
JR did say it quite aptly, mercifully. It's over as soon as the bell rang. And 2 takeaways from this match real quick with the final minute we have before we gotta get going.
And I have a bit of a controversial opinion with this, by the way.
Great. First off, I was very surprised Bradshaw didn't sandbag and stiff the hell out of Chris Nowinski.
Me too. I was surprised.
He was fully within his rights to, considering who he is. I mean, not within his rights to. Bradshaw's sort of a prick, but it would make sense given, well, not just character. I feel like that's him as a human. And so, secondly, it's crazy what it takes now to be allowed in a WWE ring compared to what it took 18 years ago. Like, people now, it's weird if you didn't spend your whole entire life preparing for this job, you know? And just
That's true.
But let me hear your controversial opinion. As
my controversial opinion, this was a bad match. I don't think it was the worst match.
Not at all.
Because, yes, it was bad, but it was only 3.5 minutes. In order for a match to be truly bad, it has to drag, in my opinion.
I think that's fair.
If anything, I thought this match was kind of interesting because I enjoyed seeing how Trish was trying to cover for all the different botches. I thought that was was interesting to see.
She did a fairly good job with that, actually.
She did. So guys, I don't think it was that bad, but it was bad.
Yes.
It just wasn't the worst.
And if you want to hear what our match of the week is for next week, be sure to go over to our social media at MainStageSU to find out, because we don't have enough time to do it now. This is Mainstage Wrestling. I'm Jacy.
I'm Sam Gelfand.
And we will see you all next week. Goodbye,
everybody.
Hey.